Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I'm the host of A Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Sharon, and welcome back to part 2 of our podcast. Enjoy.
So, these 2 pages are divided up into sections, and I'm actually going to launch straight into how have we actually been using that then? How do we find that looking like as we use it? And I've been using it with teachers, and how I've been modelling the use of it with teachers as I'm with a student.
And I think this will really help clarify for people what this is about by giving an example of you working with teachers in your school.
Except it won't be useful in that you can't see it. I need to do this, with it.
To demonstrate it,
Yeah. And that's where I have found teachers have found it most useful is to see it in demonstration.
Yep.
But we don't need to worry too much about that because Duke and her team on their website provide a number of demonstrations at different year levels.
Oh, that's useful.
So really useful to see how a teacher has begun using it, what that looks like. And I can't recommend that highly enough for teachers to be able to, for you to see what can it look like. But the important thing is about it is, I think, to explore, to try, to see how it might work with students. And here's some of the ways in which we've attempted to try and make it manageable and workable for teachers. So to begin with, because it's made up of all these different categories, from that list that I read, we've got things on reading and spelling of single-syllable, multisyllabic words. How do we go about observing that and collecting that? There's boxes set up where we can put samples of words in there. So, first box, a sample of words the child read or spelled correctly. So we can take a sample from either their reading or from their writing, and both over time, to show what kinds of words the child is now tackling with great success. So are they single syllable words? Oh, now we're seeing them moving into multi-syllable words. Words the child misread or misspelled or couldn't read or spell or omitted from their reading. So there's a box for that. Now that, in the very first instance, teachers have found that so powerful to be able to see that, wow, we can collect rapidly the areas where children are having success and the things that we're noticing that they're doing now, that, oh, wow, look at that high frequency word that they couldn't read before. Here is a new word that they're reading and reading correctly. Or here is a word that they had difficulty with. Now, it might be right there, right then, with that word. I can let them finish that sentence or finish that paragraph. I can come back to that word, and that's my teaching point. Because if I've got 79 words that they're misreading or misspelling, then this isn't the text that they should be working with. That immediately tells us something. But if there is a word that is misread, let me get that down. And then beneath that box is a really clear list of word identification or spelling strategies that I can look at. What did the child do and what might they not have known in misreading that word? So in looking at those strategies, so did they decode it by the individual letter or sound? If they didn't, is that something that they need a review of? Or did they try that and it didn't work, but they didn't try a different sound? So seeing a spelling pattern or seeing a vowel or a letter combination and not using another sound for that word to try it again. But what we can then do is by looking at something, we can then immediately think, we're almost analysing right there and then, right, what did they do? What are they ready for? So what could I now teach? And so in this little box down here, it's what's observed. I can tick and date with what's been observed, but I can then date what I'm teaching.
So probably just generally, Sharon, how you've used this with teachers in the classroom and how it's been effective for them. You don't have to go into great detail about it.
Yeah. All right, so some of the things that we have tried out in introducing this protocol have been the following. Some of the teachers I've worked with have decided that they will take just one focus from the protocol, like fluency. Now, Tim Rasinski's multidimensional fluency scale is one piece of this protocol. So this is his 2017 rubric, looking at 4 aspects of fluency: pace, smoothness, phrasing, expression and volume. Some teachers have found that they just extract that part of the protocol, pop that into students' reading journals or readers' notebooks, where they've been keeping all their students' conferencing notes and what they've been collecting about them as readers, and letting children in on both the rubric and how it works so that children can be looking at it for themselves, and then teachers using that with highlighter, dating, and being able to set goals off that and showing children where they are in their fluency development. So, for example, for a child that we worked with, we used that rubric. We could place the child immediately on the rubric because they were a little bit familiar with it already because it had been introduced. We said, okay, where is it that you're sitting with that? We placed them in the 2 section for phrasing, where they were reading in 2 or 3 word phrases, but they weren't using punctuation, stress or intonation. So what I then did was then on the spot, I did some coaching on that, got the child to then read on, and we found them doing immediately the next level that they were now reading with reasonable stress and intonation. And what's more, the child said, I just read that better than I did before, and this is what I did. So
there's your on-the-spot teaching.
Yeah. And what's more, the child right in on knowing exactly what they did, what they tried, and how that improved their reading.
So it seems like using this tool, aspects of it, rather than being overwhelmed by the whole thing, using aspects of it to narrow in on is good way to start, you've found, with teachers in the classrooms. Yep.
So that was one way. Some teachers, in fact, in one school, all the teachers in year 2, 3, 4 said to help us launch into the use of the protocol, we're going to take the fluency rubric and work with that for a few weeks and use that as part of our on-the-spot teaching and conferring and observing and listening to our students reading.
So fluency was a good one?
Fluency was a good one.
Yep.
In another school that I work with, they're working with the whole 2 sheets at once. Ambitious, but also because they want to explore kind of the range of things, and what they're trying to do is to be thinking about, what are my noticings? Where can I begin my noticing? So for many of the teachers who have done that, they have come to this by thinking of 2 big things. One, and I'm talking with upper primary teachers, so really year 3 to 6 teachers in this instance, who are saying, look, I want to help my students be better at the decoding aspect and the comprehension aspect. But I know all of these things are important and live together. But that's where the 2 sheets have come into play. And so by doing that, teachers will often find that they are taking a specific focus. So when I've modelled to the teachers, I've said, all right, what is it that you want to focus? What is this child's need that you're thinking you want to help them with through this observation, through the child reading aloud? And so they'll say decoding or comprehension. So when it's the decoding part, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm listening for what words the child is reading correctly. But because I don't know the children well, I can't necessarily know what's new for them. But what I get teachers to do at that time, because they've got the sheet as well, is to record words that they notice the child reading that are landmark words for them to be reading now. Ones that they've tackled with ease or with an attempt that's been successful. Words misread, and this is where teachers often want me to be doing the demonstration, is if they've misread something, what does that tell us and what am I going to do about that? So that's where we go straight into that word identification strategy section, and I'm looking at, of the strategies that are there, which are really listed in a hierarchical order, what strategy did the child try? What strategies didn't they try? And so therefore, which strategy can I teach them to get into that word?
That's great. And that's worked well with teachers, hasn't it? That's
worked extremely well with teachers. And it's also given us another place. So those words that have been misread, we haven't just left that on the record sheet. We have then asked the child, so these are in schools where our children have got personal word walls.
And we'll provide a link to those in the show notes.
And what we've done is asked the child to write that word that they misread onto their word wall so that it now becomes a word that we can look at more closely and use the strategy to work out that word and what is it about that word that's for us to work on. So it might be the spelling pattern. It might be an onset, a rhyme. It might be that there is prefix, suffix work there. And then what we do on the word wall is sometimes on the spare page on there, we make connections to, okay, so this word, if I know this word now, what other words will I know? So that I'm not leaving it as an isolated, okay, great, you misread that word, now you know that one. What else will you know now? So if it's with that spelling pattern or if it's got that prefix added, so what other words do we know that have got? Or the base, how did that? So I take an aspect, I take part of the word identification work to give them more strategies to not just know that word but other words as well.
And the personal word wall is another tool for allowing you to do the child to do ongoing work with those aspects that and so I guess it's making more out of what you've been doing with the protocol. It's not just the protocol.
Yeah, and connecting it to a tool that the children have in their hands.
That they're already using as part of their reading and writing.
Yes. Yeah. And so because it was a word misread, then putting it on a word wall, a personal word wall, means being able to, having done the word work with the word, understand how the word works. So from its phonic and morphological, from all its richness, its aspects of it. And then that, of course, links to, all right, I can read it. Right now I know more about how I can write that word.
I think that's a bit of gold there, Sharon. The using the protocol, yes, but to then link it with the personal word wall, a bit of gold there for teachers to really make more out of what's going on here.
Yes, and really involving the student then in having something that they've got that they can take with them, not just in this moment, but beyond. And that work, that on-the-spot teaching we're doing is actually involving, if the child's putting the word onto the word wall, they're doing something with that word already. It's not sitting as a standalone one-off, never to be seen, never to be considered again. This is that coaching, prompting, and that scaffolding that Vygotsky talks about. We are scaffolding our students beyond the moment.
You're deciding and you're teaching, but you wanting those children to take action with what you've taught them.
Yeah.
And so that act of doing something with that is what this is all about.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the other big part in it is teachers will often say, look, it's the comprehension. It's students, they're reading with... they're not misreading words. They are, they're reading with, now this is what teachers will often say, they're reading, students reading with fluency. But in fact, if teachers are noticing comprehension isn't strong, it definitely is worthwhile us looking back into fluency. Because fluency isn't just the rate of reading. So on some of our standardised assessments, our students' fluency is assessed on rate. So how many words per minute. Fluency isn't rate only. Fluency is expression and volume, phrasing, smoothness, and pace. Now, expression and volume and phrasing and smoothness all impact our understanding of the text. When we look at what an effective reader, highly successful reader is doing with expression and volume, they are reading with varied volume and expression. Varied volume and expression. The reader sounds like they are talking to a friend with their voice matching the interpretation of the passage. So right there, right then, the voice is matching the interpretation of the passage. What is a highly successful phrased reader doing? They are reading with good phrasing, which means adhering to punctuation.
Yep.
stress, and intonation. Loved the reader that I was reading with, or actually was using the protocol with, and they had never, so year 4, a highly successful reader,
Decoding,
had never noticed that in the Roald Dahl text that he was reading, that some words were written in italics. And that those words, like why would Roald Dahl write those words, have them written as italics? The child worked out that it was all about how you said that word, the intonation you used.
emphasis.
The emphasis, but intonation, what tone you used with those words. And it was this eye-opening, jaw-dropping moment for this child who, after rereading, this paragraph, then turned to me and said, "Oh, Sharon, I can't wait to use italics in my writing for my readers."
Oh, wow. Yep.
Because he absolutely understood the purpose of the italics. Until then, he'd not noticed them. They held no meaning. Words in italics held no meaning other than it was a word on the page. So these are big things. This is on the listening to reading protocol that day. That's exactly, it was on that fluency phrasing part. That's where we worked. What does smoothness mean as an effective reader? It means reading with some breaks. It means self-correcting with difficult words or sentence structures. Self-correcting those things. That's what smoothness means. It includes self-correcting to get the smoothness right. Not just barreling along and, sounded like I'm an expert reader, but it didn't demonstrate fluency at all or understanding. And what does pace mean? Reads at an appropriate conversational pace throughout the reading.
So wrapping this up, we've got comprehension being enhanced by fluency in a big way.
Yeah.
And that has not necessarily been a focus for comprehension.
Correct. But I have to say,
it's a vital part.
It's a vital part and isn't by any means the only part only. And I love that as part of this protocol, there have also been a number of prompts. So remember how Duke Ward and Klingelhofer talk about this as a coaching and prompting protocol. They have also provided some really powerful conversational prompts for particularly the comprehension, comprehension and composition part of this tool, which is about probably a quarter of this protocol. We have got prompts for reading and writing and writing. And it's these prompts that I think are significant in helping us as teachers get significant information from our students.
As regards comprehension?
As regards comprehension, comprehension, and composition.
Right.
So if we think about a running record and we think about, I'm going to say, let's take the scripted running record sheets that many of us are familiar with, where there are set questions asked. And those questions, there may be literal, inferential questions at the end. This isn't about, after reading, what questions can students answer for us to find out about their comprehension or about what they did as a reader or as a writer. So comprehension, we really have to think of that as partly like that's that metacognition, that meta-awareness of what we are doing as a reader or a writer and what preferences and opinions we have about things. So in the protocol, it talks about general comprehension, and these are the general comprehension prompts. So what happened in this part of the text?
Simple.
Or what did you learn from this part of the text?
Especially non-fiction. Or it doesn't matter.
It's general.
Yep.
What did you learn? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're the questions to ask. That's not a set question to check on literal or inferential. That is general comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
In comprehension, the prompt is, did reading this book help you achieve, and so what is it that the child's goal was? So did reading this book help you, so what was their purpose or goal for reading this? Did it help you read with expression to better understand what you read? Did reading this help you achieve whatever it is? Why or why not? So you can see these questions now aren't questions of just recall or getting the right answer to something. These are questions of really thinking about my interaction with this text and what I've learned from that and what's actions.
What's the action I've been wanting to take in text to do more of? And this is assessing that.
Yeah. Now, there's a whole lot of more focused prompts then for things like, so reactions and responses. So for reading, what did this text make you think about? Or how does this text make you feel? Or what did you think of this text? Now, actions, reactions and responses are a big part of our Australian curriculum.
Right.
So in the literature strand, what are our students' opinions and preferences for texts, their reactions and responses? If we're not asking and not getting that information from our students, maybe we're getting that through asking them to respond to those things in their reading journal. But I think the important thing here is that we are asking those as everyday kinds of questions that we ask our students so that they become part of how they think as they read and how they think in response and react to their reading.
That's fantastic. All deepening their comprehension.
Yeah. And then I love that as an equivalent for writing, we would ask them, so what do you think of your piece so far? Or what do you like about your piece? What do you want to improve in your piece? So this is my moment with a child in my class where I've thought, what is it that this child needs? Can I work this out? No, I don't have to work this out. I need to ask powerful questions to help the child think about what they're thinking so that it can be revealed. What next? So by them responding, so what do you think of your piece so far? Brilliant question. Rather than me just giving a response to this is what I think so far. No, what do you think of your piece so far? Give them the agency. This protocol isn't about things being done to a child. This is about it being drawn out, about entering into not just observation, but but conversation.
About the students' actions in their own reading and writing, and getting a rich focus on that.
Yeah. Then there's others. I won't go through all of them, but then there's prompts for, genre, for strategies. Example for reading. So how did you figure that out? Or what could you try next in writing? How did you figure out how to write that? What do you plan to write next? So these are all the drawing out, letting the child own their actions and processes and being trusted to do that.
And we'll take a break there from part 2 of our podcast. We look forward to you joining us for part 3. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.